Hi, welcome to our channel Mansa Tutorials. This is Mansa, came here to explain science subject of class 8. So when we come to 8th class, we find one subject as biology and the other subject as physical sciences. So initially we are taking step to start classes only in biology section. So we are taking classes on biology. So when we see in this biology, first lesson of the chapter is of our science class is what is science. Okay, so first chapter is what is science. So what is science? Science is something, it is a subject. You say it's a subject, then what? Science. So according to Latin, scientia, which mean knowledge. Okay, science, in Latin it is known as scientia, which mean knowledge. So that is the meaning of science. So when we see what is science in our day-to-day life, you see from previous day to this day, some change will be, we observe some change in the technology or in our surroundings. So in the same way, when we observe our lifestyles or way of living from previous to till now, that is, there are so many innovations or so many technologies involved, like what? Internet, technology, we have developed vast. So this vast development is because of science. So all the facilities which are available today, when we compare it to our primitive life, that is to our previous life, like computers, smartphones, internets, etc. These all were the ideas or innovations. What? To make something new, to make something different. Means these are the innovations, isn't it? People think that I can do in this type. People want something to happen in this way. So these all are what? The innovations or thoughts or ideas of someone to be, they are made into action, and that thing, so they are brought as action. So these all were the ideas or innovations of human beings, that is, by people who think differently to observe and understand nature in specific way. So all the facilities, whatever, when we are comparing it to our primitive one, whatever facilities today we are having, like computers, internet, smartphones, all these are what? They are the innovations or ideas, something to do things easier or to do things differently. These all were what? Thoughts, ideas of some people who want to observe things differently. So today we will just come to know, we will understand what they used to think, what is their thinking. That is what today we are going to discuss here. So what is science? When we say this, concerted human efforts to understand to understand something betterly, whatever is happening, it's continuous effort. Yes, something is going on, then person want to know why it has happened, where it has happened, how it has happened. Yes, so concerted efforts of human to understand or to understand betterly, isn't it? This is not a complicated definition, but it is so simple. When we observe, science is a concerted human effort to understand or to understand better the history of the natural world. So what we are trying to know, what we are trying to understand, it is the history of the natural world and how the nature works. So that is, so what is science means? Continuous human effort for what? To understand or to understand better. What to understand? The natural works. By how to understand? By observations or by experimentation. Observation or by experimentation or by some physical evidence. So we try to understand. So it is done through observation of natural phenomena and or through experimentation that tries to stimulate natural process under controlled conditions. So now you understood. It is a very simple definition saying that concerted human efforts to understand or to understand better, what you have to understand, what is happening, the history of nature or natural, something like natural works, to understand them with observational physical evidences. So something is happening, then what we want? Some evidence. We want how it is happening, where it is happening, by whom it is happening. We want one physical evidence. On basis of that we are trying to understand. So it is done through observation of natural phenomena. First, when we do this effort, one thing, we observe something naturally happening, natural phenomena is happening. Then what we do? we stimulate through experimentation that tries to stimulate natural process under controlled conditions. So whatever has happened in front of my eyes on natural phenomenon, I want to prove it with one physical evidence. I want to prove it with one physical evidence by performing some experimentation. That's it. So science is nothing but concerted human effort to understand or to understand better the history of nature or natural works with observational physical evidence. It is done physical evidence as the basis of the that understanding. On the basis of that understanding, it is done through. So what is done? It is done through observational natural phenomena and or through experimentation that tries to stimulate natural process under controlled conditions. So we we do experiment of that process under controlled condition, and we bring a physical evidence that it is true. So that is called what? Science. So finally, science is a process of what? Thinking, isn't it? So I have seen some issue. What I mean, how that issue has happened, how it happened, in what kind of conditions it has taken place, where it has taken place. So by thinking, what is this? These all are what? Thinking, my thoughts, my ideas, isn't it? So it's a human effort, continuous, concerted human effort to understand something what? Better way, to understand what has happened in a better way by what? With some physical evidence. So to do this, either through natural phenomenon or by experimentation of that particular event under controlled conditions, means in a laboratory or in certain place where all the see something happening under controlled conditions, we try to perform that activity under controlled condition or in a laboratory or somewhere where we want to prove it. So when we are doing this task under controlled condition, then we are going to get the output, evidence to prove that something has happened. So this is what you are putting effect, you are trying to understand something, you are performing activity, you want some physical evidence. What is this all? We were thinking. Just so science is a process of thinking. Simply we can say it's a process of thinking. So this is what the definition means. It's not something, what to say, unimaginable or unexplained. It's a small thing that concerted human efforts to understand something better and something what is happening in the nature, this task with some physical evidence. So to do that, what we need, either by natural phenomenon or we'll do some experimentation under controlled conditions to prove that, to bring that physical evidence. That is what is mentioned here. So science is an organized authority, organized study of knowledge. It's also organized study of knowledge means, see, saying something blindly is not science. So science explains everything stepwise way. They will perform that activity in certain sequence and we explain the output perfectly. So it is what a planned structure. It is given, it is provided with perfect. So it is what study of knowledge in a. So science is an organized study of knowledge which is based on experimentation. At the same time, science is also a searching tool of truth. So these are all what? Different definitions of science. Okay. So science is also searching tool of truth in the nature. In the same way, science is a way of exploring the world. What is that? It is a way of exploring the world. So we have seen some certain types. What is the first? Science is a thinking. Next, science is knowledge. Okay, organized study of knowledge means we know something in a sequence. We say some answer with some proof and evidence. So it is an organized knowledge. Next thing, it is a tool for finding truth. Okay, it is a tool with the help of which we find the truth of the nature, truth in the nature. At the same time, science is a way of exploring. So something we want to do new, different. Okay, so what we are doing, we are thinking, innovating. So what is that? Exploring the world. We are exploring. So these are different type of definitions for what is science. Okay, I hope you understood this. Now we'll go into the next session. Before going to that, what I want to tell you is, so these all initially in the statement itself we have said about concerted human efforts to understand or to understand something better, the natural history or natural works. Okay, by what means? With observational physical evidence on the basis of the understanding it. Something here it is mentioned that science is a process of what? Thinking. Yes, first definition what we gave is a process of thinking. So our thoughts, our ideas, our questioning, how this thinking comes. When you start thinking something differently, this is what, why this has happened, why it has happened, these sort of questions what they make us. So when we start questioning like this, what increases? Thinking increases. Okay, so some sort of questions which are mentioned in our textbook are given here, like why do leaves fell down from the tree when they turn into yellow? When they turn into yellow, why these leaves are falling? Isn't it? When leaves are green, they stay on the stem, and when they turn yellow, what happens? Suddenly all the leaves will fall. And whenever we pack some jaggery or sugar in one tin and we close that cap tightly, but still ants can go there. We get a doubt how this ant came to know that I kept something sweet here, isn't it? At the same time, pickles, we make pickles at home. They never spoil even when they are for years and years. In the same way, we make sambar at our home, but it spoils after one day. Why? Isn't it? It's a question, isn't it? So it is also a question. As we know that science is a process of thinking, isn't it? So what is that? Questioning. Questioning is a major thing that is important for thinking something differently. So we have seen few things like, so what sort of questions we get? What by seeing our surroundings, by observing some things, we get some sort of questions in our mind. That is why these leaves when they turn yellow they fall off. Why ant go wherever we hide the sugar, ant will go and find it out. And why pickles won't spoil easily and why sambar spoils easily. So these are some doubts. Yes, farmers have many doubts because they are very they fear for the unpredictable rains, seasonal changes, because how it will come, where it will come, when these rains will come, when the crop will spoil. So they have that fear. In the same time, when we see why stars were not visible during daytime, only they are visible in the night time. These are also doubts, no? Whenever we go on to our terrace and see why these stars are visible only during night time, why they are not visible in the daytime. We observe that, right? And also we observe why we get disease, how can we cure that disease, on what basis this disease has come, how to cure that disease. So these are all what some sort of questions, doubts. What we are doing, it's just means to say something, scientific thinking, fundamental step to do anything, or to means what to say, to develop our knowledge or to know something is happening. First thing is questioning. When we question something, when we start questioning, when we question, when we think regarding that, when we are thinking regarding that, we start questioning. So this questioning comes because of the scientific thinking. Because of this scientific thinking, we question like this. So there are some sort of questions. So but every question cannot be solved or thought by our own thoughts. We cannot solve every question, isn't it? So see, I got some doubt why stars are visible only in the night. So I can't solve the problem or I can't give the answer for that question. So basing on these questions, different persons work on different aspects of our nature to provide answers or to provide solutions for n number of problems. So when we see an ecologist, what an ecologist do? He works on the natural behavior. So this season what is happening? So climatic nature, what are the changes happening in the nature? So that natural behavior was studied by some ecologists. When you see geologists, they work on the fossils. They observe some remnants, yes, finding out to which season this remnant belong, to which period this remnant, they work on that. They solve how this remnant came, how, from where it has come. They try to find out its by getting some evidence, they start working on that. Okay, now next person is astrophysicist. So what this astrophysicist does, he works on the galaxies. Yes, they are outbounded something, no, beyond the sky, what is happening, isn't it? So these all works who do astrophysics, they work on this. So they work on the stars, they work on how what is happening in the galaxies. These all work was done by astrophysicists. At the same time, climatologists, what they do, They find the weather conditions, climatic conditions, when it is, how the rain will come, when it will come, on which places that will affect, where it will affect suddenly. So all climatic change, any change in the climate was studied by this climatic climatologists. So what these all were doing, these all people are finding something. Yes, they are searching reasons for some what has happened. For that they are giving some solutions. Means these people are working on that. As everyone can't get solutions for all the problems, so these people are working on that problem to give a result or to give some solution. So when we observe, so that whatever examples we have discussed up to now, that is like ecologists, geologists, astrophysicists, isn't it, climatologists, these all are who they, these all were observational science. Means they are working on observational science. These all people were working on observational science. Yes, galaxies, climatic, these all are what? Do they perform any experiment? No, they just observe and they get the information. So these are performing observational science works. Okay, so at the same time science is also having experimental science. Science is also, so we have two types of science. Okay, for one is observational science and the other one is experimental science. In the observational science, now we have discussed some examples now, like what are that examples? Geologists, ecologists, astrophysicists, climatologists, these all are what? Observational science. They come under observational science. They perform tasks by seeing, observing things, by observing nature. They do that works. Their works were performed by observing the nature, why it is happening, where it is happening. So by observation they perform the task. When we come to experimental science, these are people like chemists. When you observe a chemist, what does he do? He works in a laboratory. He takes some chemical reactions. He observed at this temperature what is the reaction, at this concentration what is the reaction. So he performed this task, isn't it? So when we come to experimental science, in experimental science, some are like chemists and some like nuclear physicists. What they do, some circular path is there, so they want to find out its angular momentum. So such type of things were performed by nuclear physicists. At the same time biologists, what they do, they check the stimuli of the tissue, or they do some biological experiments to prove some task. So these people work in laboratories, understood? So this observational science is performed, it is not performed in laboratories. It doesn't mean that it is not performed in laboratories. It doesn't mean this observational science is, they observe certain things and they come to a conclusion. At the same time experimental science is nothing but where they perform experiments, they do experiments and they give the output. In that experimental science, few examples are like chemists, nuclear physicists and biologists who works in the, these three people, chemists, nuclear physicists and biologists, these all work in a concerned laboratories, understood? They work in labs. So at the same time, so this is how, now till now what we have studied, what is science. Yes, before that how science has originated, what is science, we have, what is science definitions we have studied. And now we studied science is of two types. What is that? Observational science and experimental science. Observational science, we said some examples, and also when we are coming to experimental science, there also we discussed some examples. So this observational science and experimental science, why these two, for what purpose they are used is nothing but they are making or recording the observations of what? Nature. So why they are making or recording the observations of nature? Simply it's to understand something better, or what is happening, to understand the natural work. So this observational science and experimental science is used for understanding the science, understanding the nature works. So all these people together commonly they are working on a single point. What is that point? Is they are making or recording the observations of nature or natural works. For what purpose? Is in order to learn more about the natural works. This is why this task is going. Ultimately the main goal of these all experiments or observations is nothing but something which is proven true previously or in the early period is to be proved. Means they want to say that is wrong, something is wrong, instead that is wrong, new idea or new explanation they want to give for that previously something is proved or something which has happened previously. Exactly, we can say the ideas of the scientists a century ago or perhaps just a year ago are wrong, and that instead new ideas to explain nature in a better way. So why these all were doing is, these all experiments, experimental science and observational science, these all experiments, all these tasks were performed for what? They all are working on a common point. They are making and recording the nature tasks or observations of nature. For what? To understand it better. And ultimate goal of all this is simply to say, how we can say, what is the final goal is to disprove something or to conduct something new. Something has happened previously, so they want to say or they want to explain that it is wrong and it is happening in this way, this is the right way for that, to explain that in a better way, these experiments or observations were used. And in the same time, this experimental and observational science helps in something bringing new or making something new, bringing something new idea into existence. For these reasons, this science is applied. So we know what is science, and we are saying science is of two types. Why science is of two types? Because to prove something, means what are the uses by having this type of science? So to prove something true or something to be proven wrong, and to be proved that this is the right way to perform the task. So to explain that, this experimental and observational science is useful. So at the same time, so what does really science mean? So what does it really mean? Science refers of a system of acquiring knowledge. It's a system of acquiring knowledge. So science is saying what? We are acquiring knowledge in a systematic way. This method was observation and experimentation to describe and explain new phenomena. So something can be proven as wrong, or something new phenomena can be proved as true. Understood? For this reason, these all tasks were happening. Science also refers as organized body of knowledge, and it is also, science is also said as systematic field to study or the knowledge gained from it. So what I mean to say, what really science is? Science refers of a system of acquiring knowledge. Science is referring to a system of acquiring knowledge. So this method was this observational and experimental sciences were described, means to explain something new phenomena, or to prove that something which is proved true earlier is wrong, and this is the right way to get that. So to prove this, science is used. The term science refers to the organized body of knowledge people have gained using this method. So less formally, the word science often describes any systematic field of study or the knowledge gained from it. So something which has physical evidence and it is read in a physical systematic format, that is known as science. It is organized body of knowledge. Science is what? An organized body of knowledge. So now why this science? Why these experiments were done? These observational experiments, this chemical experiments, or something like experimental experiments. Why we do this? Why this is required in science? Why this sort of science is required? So this science is required for two aspects. One is individual perspective and the other one is societal perspective. So these are the two important reasons why this science, experimentation of this science is taking place. So individual perspective. What is individual perspective? When someone is working for his, that person want to prove something new, which he want to prove something is new, or he or she want to prove something thought by someone is wrong. Understood? Or some theory is wrong, isn't it? So initially Pluto is also called as what? One of the planet. But now after a few years, coming to recent studies, it is not considered as a planet. So what? Someone disproved that. Someone made it disproved. So this, what I mean to say is, this individual perspectives are to test new ideas or to disprove old ones. So this individual perspective is for what? To test new ideas or to disprove the old one. Previously no answers means something which has got no answer, something which is not understood, or finding something new. For that purpose, this individual perspective research is used. I mean, individual perspective science is used. In this, what happens? Person gains fame because someone proved something new, someone bought something new. What happens? He will be identified. He gets some identification. He will be identified. So for that identification, individual identification, this sort of perspective, means this individual perspective is for maybe for that particular person's uh, establishment, or for that particular person's growth or development. This individual perspective science is performed. But because of this, in this individual perspective, person will become famous, person will be identified. So here many scientists find their greatest joy in a previously unknown fact that explained some problems previously not explained, or the overturns of some what this individual perspective says is previously something is disproved. So this person, if he could make it proved, then what, he gets some identification, right? He will be famous, he will be identified. At the same time, there is no answer for certain things, but if someone tries to find answer for that, then he will be identified, he becomes famous. So this is what, so individual perspective is something which brings famous and joy to the singular individual person. When we are seeing the societal perspective, in this societal perspective, one is for to improve the life of people, and the other one is to improve the economical status of the country. When we see economical status, economical development, it may be for a country or it may be for a person, society. So societal work, this is. So in societal perspective is for two reasons. One, to improve the life of a people, other to improve the economical standards. So first scenario we will see improve the life of people. So here some scientists work on see some genetician. When you see some genetics, what they do, they work on our genes and DNA, isn't it? So they work on this and they try to find out what are the reasons. See, some hereditary diseases will be, they come from the parent to the children. So such type of research works these geneticians do. So when they do this such research and they find resolution, they get some answer, they find the answer, sorry, not resolution, they find the result. So when they try to get the result, they try to prevent some problem which is going to come in that situation, isn't it? Some genetical problems, they come from family to family. So when these people are working on that, they come to know that this problem occurs here, so this is the solution. They will try to provide a solution for that problems which are coming from one generation to other generation. And also some earth scientists, what they do to prevent these earthquakes, means they predict that this earthquake is going to attack, or some landslide is coming, or some disaster is going to happen. So when they predict that, so what we do, we try to get alert of that and we try to reduce the level of risk. Yes, people work to they work to reduce that level of, it may happen, it will occur, but that will not have very high range of risk, because as it is early identified, so people work on that and reduce the risk. So this is what it is for the wellness of the people. Yes. When we come to this societal perspective, here two types of conditions. Initially first condition we have discussed. Now in the second condition, to develop the economical status or economical development. For this economical development, different scientists work. Like some people dedicate their life to find out. See, some scientists, they work on the resources. So they dedicate their life to find out where good resources are available, where what sort of resources. So this will be helpful for the economical development of the country, isn't it? At the same time, when we come to some people who are working on like plant scientists, when we see this plant scientists, they work on different strains of crop, isn't they try to mix some different types of crops where we get high yield nutritional food. So when they could produce high yield crops and nutritionally well good foods or good crops, what happens, it immediately impacts the life of the agriculture farmer, isn't it? So these plant scientists will help the economical growth of the farmer. When economical standards of a farmer are increased, so compulsory, it's literally we can say that economical standards of the country are also increased, isn't it? At the same time, some chemists, they work on different chemicals, medicines, isn't it, to produce some different types of medicines or to produce some different types of chemicals for the use of in medical stream, or for this, for different diseases. They try to conduct different types of experiments and get some results, and they try to provide the medicine. These chemists will help like that. Some physicists also will uh, perform different activities, and likewise in the developing the knowledge. So these all means like whatever activity these physicists, chemists, plant scientists, these all they perform their activities or they perform these experiments to, for the sake of the development, economical development. So when they work like this, economical development takes place. When this economical development is taking place, ultimately our country economical development is also taking place. So they are working for whom? For the sake of society. So this is societal perspective. So there are even some, when you see in the world, there are some countries which are highly settled or highly developed, highly well furnished, they have good economical growth. So for their economical growth, there is nothing to say that science did not give any part. 100% means most part of their economical growth is dependent on their science. That is what it is mentioned here in the economic components. Support of this science is nothing less than an investment in the economic future. If some country is highly economically developed, that doesn't mean that country has no share to the science. So act equally like so investment, how investment is important, equally science is also important for development of certain countries. Understood? And there are some places or society. So that is the reason. What I mean to say is, if someone is developed or economically grown, so their growth is not only because of the investments, but their growth is also because of the support of science also. So lastly, society supports science because of simple curiosity, satisfaction and enlightenment that come from knowledge of the world around us. So finally, why this science means, it is for the sake of individual perspective and for the sake of societal perspective. This societal perspective is useful for upgradation. Here what happens? Either life of the people or economical growth. So these two are for whom? For the development of the society, country, people, isn't it? So that is the reason these societies support science, because they are curious, they are satisfied, and enlightenment that comes because when science is developed, what happens? We get good technologies, we have good knowledge, because of which we can have good growth in our country. That is the reason societies support this science. So from this we have completed why science topic, and later in the next session we are going to see science and changes in our next video. Hope this video is useful for you. If you have any doubts, please mention in the comment box. Thank you. Please subscribe and share my channel, Mansa Tutorials.